call the Arlington School District Board of Directors meeting to order at 5:30. Have a requested amendment to the agenda. Under the consent agenda, there was a nomination form for Teresa Bacon that is not included on the consent agenda. So if we could get a motion to revise the agenda to add Teresa Bacon to the nomination list.
So moved.
Okay. That's not approving the consent agenda. We'll get there. I just wanted to make sure that it was noted under the changes. Hi.
Hello.
And then our first item of business is public comments. Do you have anyone here with comments from the public? If not, moving on, we have operations with purchase of the bus. Holly, your recommendation documentation was sent out. Was there, do you want to walk us through what you've got?
So, when last we met, we were providing guidance to go out and get, to publicly advertise and also invite the front bus companies to provide quotes. We did receive one quote that had diesel and gas included. And so that's what I added to the agenda. Through conversations with Dan and others in the community, I thought it would be prudent to bring to the board our wonderings about if the buses are utilized to the best of their ability, and if there are other ways to look at the bus routes and our walk zones to better use what we have instead of buying something new. And that's a conversation that I would like to articulate.
Is this something you guys have talked about?
We had with Mike, and last week to talk about the number of students on a bus, or our ability to ride ship, as Holly says, and Mike is saying like buses are a third full, and if we even looked at students who live within a half a mile with sidewalks, so that if we had students from the Bonnie and Clyde stop, for lack of a better, and East Arlington Road, if those students, the number of students that would walk with sidewalks within a half a mile, and then looking at the number of students and just sort of rerouting students so that the routes were different and the rides were the same amount of time. That some of the double ups are currently would actually be less, we believe, but it is conversation.
Yeah, just from coming and witnessing drop off in the mornings, it seems as if, and this is consistent through all the districts that we manage, that parents are dropping off a lot more than students are riding the bus to school. It seems to be a trend since COVID, and it seems as if there's an opportunity to find some efficiencies in what we do and how we operate in the practice transportation.
Was this quote, you have it up there? You have it there?
Mm-hmm.
There's a,
It's in your packet.
Yeah, it's in the back of the school.
do you want to
Yeah.
see the hard copy? I appreciate that perspective. I guess I feel like it seems like every time we bring up the topic of the bus, we're not making a decision. And this is a different piece of information. Like, this is a different perspective on what we need for transportation resources. Because when we met last, I believe what the board had asked for was, we need to go buy another bus and go get bids so that we can buy another bus. If there is an opinion that, or a perspective that we don't need another bus, that to operate our school district, that the buses that we have in the fleet could meet our needs and take one out of the mix. Is that what I'm hearing?
From my perspective, I think it's worth understanding how this school year started. And now that we've started, we got a little bit into it. Understanding how many students are riding compared to being dropped off by parents or guardians. I think it's worth the exercise to see if it's necessary or not. There seems to be a shift.
Okay.
And they know my feeling on
What bus is currently out of commission?
it. No,
They're all operational?
except for Sandy.
So I look at this, I am all for looking at efficiencies, right? So that we look at whether or not we're operating the appropriate amount of buses on a daily basis. I also look at this from a lens of what our fleet currently is. And we currently have a 2020, a 2017, a 2015, and a 2011. So in theory, and I'm only going to talk theory here, if you were able to cut out a run, you're in theory knocking out a 2011 bus. That leaves us with a bus still that is 10 years old. And that is just to do your runs. That doesn't include the multiple sports runs that happen on a daily basis and things like that. Even though I do support us looking at the efficiencies of that, I am going to advocate that we do purchase a new bus. Because even if you take a bus off your current rotation of runs, then you need a bus to do those sports runs and things like that, and it improves your fleet from a 10-year-old bus that is probably almost at its end of life within the next few years to a brand new bus.
Yeah.
And we financially have the money set aside to do that.
The number I received from Renee today, that your special fund for buses has a balance as of June 30th, $127,766.70. $127,766.70.
So Holly, remind me though, the solar, the electric bus proposal.
Yes.
We have authorized moving forward with that electric bus proposal, which would provide 3, right? 4?
Yeah, so we would leave one diesel or gas, whichever we choose. Bus, sort of the newest and best, right? And Mike, correct me where I'm wrong, right? Yeah. We leave one bus, and then we get 4 electric buses, and all those bids, we bid them out about the same time. And we have those bids back, and different, bells and whistles that go with them. So those would replace 4 of ours. So the one bus we could retain is the most.
The 2020. 2020.
Yeah. Yes, and so those are moving forward. The electric bus fleet is moving forward, and we will need to kind of purchase order, should you like to move forward, by the end of November.
That's the only piece that I would, if those 4 buses are coming and we buy a bus now, the bus that we would retain is the most current bus. So then we would be retaining the bus we just purchased and retiring all of the other buses.
I thought it was only 3 buses. I didn't realize it was 4.
I was trying to find that.
Yeah, because we have 5 right now, right?
No, we have 4.
We have 4 plus Sandgate. Right?
You'd be able to retain the 2020 and the new one.
Correct.
But similarly, I thought it was 3 buses
Yeah.
as part of this electric bus proposal.
Yeah, that's fine.
Are you including Sandgate's bus in ASDs?
I'm sorry, I'm not delineating Sandgate. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yes, Sandgate has one, yes, you're correct. Sandgate has one, you guys have 3.
so Sandgate's bus would go away. I don't even know, I think that's a 2010, right, Mike?
Yeah.
The 2011, the 2015, and the 2017, and Arlington could retain the 2020 and the 2020, if we purchase a new one, 2024.
Sandgate.
But that means we would have 5 buses in our fleet for what we're talking about is potentially reduced use of our,
Well, you cannot get rid of your diesel buses because you will not get your kids to Sharon, Vermont, or Rivendell, Vermont, or,
no, we've talked about maintaining one diesel bus in the fleet, that we would have the 3 electric buses and hold on to the 1 diesel, the most recent being the 2020. If we buy a bus now, and then we get the 3 electric buses, we have to retire 3 buses. So,
which is your 2011, 2015, and 2017.
How often does the teams go, 2 teams go on the same day someplace?
Oh, wow.
but then we have a 2020 and a
So you need
2024.
2 regular buses.
I mean, most of your middle school games are probably within your electric bus reach.
Except for Glen Valley.
I'm sorry?
Except for Glen Valley.
Yeah. Personally, I'm very nervous about only having 1 diesel bus in our fleet.
We had 4 electric buses right now. October 1st, there's 4 buses down that court. 2 of them are on the way. Because I thought we were going for 4, and we were going to be able to keep 2, the newest 2 diesels. Because there'll be some field trips that are going to be over the limit of electric buses.
Right, and when we talked about this before, what we talked about is making sure that we maintain 1 diesel bus in our fleet and retire the 3 that we have to retire to get the electric bus replacements. So if
I
we...
thought it was 2. I thought it was, we were maintaining 2 diesel buses.
Mm-mm.
We're still going to be in the line if we have 1 bus.
So whatever electric bus we get, we have to retire one. So if we're getting,
If Arlington's getting 3,
3,
we have to retire 3 buses.
correct.
So under that scenario, we would still retire 3 buses, we would keep the 2020, and if we're buying a bus now we have 2 diesel buses and 3 electric buses. So we have 5 buses for a school district of our size with our student population. That's a lot of buses. I'm not the transportation expert, but that's a lot of buses. If you're saying to us tonight that we should probably look at our use of our buses, $125,000 to buy a bus tonight. I was coming in here fully prepared to say that we need to go buy a bus because we've been talking about buying a bus. But unless our goal is to have 5 buses in the Arlington School District fleet, then I don't know that we're in that need of buying a bus.
I still believe you need 2 diesel buses.
So we'd have 5 buses in our fleet.
I don't know if your electric buses are going to be what we think they're going to be. We hope that they're going to be that. You can always sell a diesel bus later on if these electric buses work out the way that they're supposed to. But getting rid of all of your diesel buses and relying on only electric and 1 diesel bus right now, I would advocate against. I'm not saying we can't make it work, but it's going to be, in my opinion, troublesome.
We can't just get 2 electric buses?
We've agreed to 3 in the grant.
You can't change it.
I can certainly ask. Yes. Yep, so including the chargers and the, there's the chargers and then there's other things to keep the batteries warm, especially in the cold. It's, and keep saying it in this, it's about 1.6 million including the chargers. Okay.
I was initially frustrated that we've been having versions of this same conversation since April, and probably longer than that, but it feels like every time we come back to talk about it, there's a different piece of information to consider. And I'm not a transportation expert, and I don't know that any of us are bus experts, so I rely on the recommendations from our administrative team.
When does the bus need to be ordered? Like, by when?
So the diesel or gas bus can be anytime.
Okay.
The electric ones need to be ordered by November, or end of October, like I need to put the purchase orders in.
And that we've already done. So we're really looking at whether we purchase one or not.
Yeah, do we purchase a diesel and then still have the 2020? So then we would leave ourselves with 5 buses.
And if you have one diesel bus and you have a basketball team that goes to Leland and Gray and a basketball team that goes to Sharon, Vermont, how are you getting them both there?
Right. I think you have to have at least 2 diesel buses.
I'm looking at you,
Yeah.
the proposal, I think the board's opportunity is to evaluate the proposal that's being given and make sure that it is sort of financially responsible. But I can't say whether or not we need 1 or 2. That needs to come from those people who operate our transportation fleet.
I've said
We've
right
been
from-
talking about 1.
I've said right from the beginning that I need 2 diesel buses
Okay,
if we have one.
okay,
And that was my understanding when we discussed electric buses.
okay,
Because if you told me 1 back then, I would have been just like I am
okay.
today. I mean, I'm not saying I am a transportation expert, but I've
Well, yeah.
I've been at this a very long time.
You've been having this bus conversation
Yeah.
for a long time.
And knowing that because I rode buses for 25 years as a coach,
Yep.
knowing the distances that they travel in inclement weather in our geographical makeup of Vermont, it's highly unlikely that, that we know of right now, that an electric bus is going to make those trips.
Yeah, no, that was part of the conversation, is that we have to maintain the diesel bus in the fleet to be able to cover.
And if these electric
But if what we're saying
buses-
now is we need to have 2,
If these electric buses amaze the heck out of us, you can always sell a bus. But to me, until you know that for a fact, you have to be prepared.
okay,
And that's just my opinion. I'm just
Yeah,
sharing
so
my
we
opinion.
are, during the RFP process, we just like visit here with all the vendors who work with us. And, they're salesmen, right? So they're coming from a different point of view. I have no doubt that the lion's share of the buses will be able to go back and forth. I can't guarantee it. We won't know till we know, right?
Yeah.
But the technology that they were articulating and talking about, I think it's gonna be an issue. But again, that's from the
What-
salesman, right?
Are they going to send us a bus when our kids are stranded in Leland and Gray and can't get them back?
Right.
I mean, those are my fears right now. From a safety standpoint, I would like to see that happen for a winter, and then after the winter is over, if those electric buses have proven themselves, then we can reevaluate on what our diesel fleet looks like. But until then, I think we need to err on the side of caution, because from other transportation districts that have these buses, 90 miles is about max.
yeah.
In Vermont, and that's not an inclement weather going over the mountain.
Right. Do you have adequate buses right now to meet the current needs to get the kids to school, from school, and to sporting events? No.
Well, I think right now is independent drivers.
That and the spare bus that we're using now going to Sandy, that's the one we had issues with. They could go down again.
Is Sandgate going to buy themselves a new bus?
That should have been done a long time ago.
They're looking
Good,
at electric
yeah.
bus.
And that will be the only bus that they have.
That I know of.
But they don't have to worry about sports routes. That's our biggest thing. If all we had to do was deliver kids around Arlington, we're good to go, but we have other responsibilities.
If we approve tonight to accept this bid to buy this bus, how long will it take to get the bus?
I don't know off the top of my head, I can get back to you, it should be in short order.
90 to 120 days.
Yeah, and they put that in the RFP response, from my conversations with the vendor that has been standard on that, so, I can verify once we can purchase it.
Okay. I mean, if what we're saying is we need 2 diesel buses in the fleet and we're gonna retire 3, then we need to buy 1. And if that is the case, do we have a motion? What is the pleasure of the board here at this point?
Well, I will make a motion to purchase a diesel bus from Anderson Bluebird Bus Sales for the amount of $124,544.
I'll second it.
124,535.
$124,544.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We've had lots of discussion. Is there any further discussion or questions?
I guess I have a question. Do we really need 3 electric buses if we have 2 of these?
I think the hope and intent is that if the electric buses work out the way that they're advertised, that you can get rid of your diesel bus.
I mean, what do we have, 4 buses?
Yeah.
We currently have 4 in San Diego.
You have a question? We have,
What's the range on these buses?
I don't have that information in
I'm
front of
sorry, I
me.
couldn't
Todd
hear.
said 90
The
miles.
range, what's the range?
They're advertising up to 200, but in reality, it's much less.
Well, in practice,
I
it
don't know who
depends
this
on
is.
if you have the diesel block heater to preheat. And this is a part of the answer, but it depends, right? It depends on the bells and whistles you get on the bus. The versions, and I can certainly provide this, with the information of the RFQ, the company we're working with is putting together all of the
Yep.
bid results.
Yep.
And they're sorting out in a spreadsheet, like this one says they can go this many miles, this one says they can go this many miles. So they're vetting out all those details, and I just don't know off the top of my head.
So once the proposal goes through, then Arlington decides which model they want and which, I guess, the evaluation wants to do. And how far do the kids travel to and from to sporting events? How many miles? Like,
It depends. I mean, some of them are on the Canadian border.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
thought
I
it was
don't know
just
who you
one.
are. I'm sorry. I don't know who,
Oh, I'm Christina Henry. I'm just a parent.
not just a parent.
Oh.
You're a parent.
Parent.
You're not just a parent. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know who you were.
So, for example, last week, the girls' soccer team went to Rivendell, which is in Orford, New Hampshire, and that's approximately 100 miles, 105 miles one way. So that's a 210-mile round trip.
And like you said, in the home, my family, we own electric cars. So we kind of understand the nuances between,
Yep.
the temperature change and everything. So in the winter, it does zap the battery. You get lots
Sure.
of
Yep.
range. And if you're running the heat, it also drains the battery. But what's great about Vermont, it's very hilly. So as you're going up and down the hill, you regen a lot of the energy back. So sometimes you can stay at, your range, but, you can gain miles as you're going. So, but, for instance, like you said, like travel, I didn't know the travel was out of state, something like that. I thought it was just to let them in back. And,
So just for, I don't know, I guess, to clarify, we are currently moving forward with a proposal to bring in 3 electric buses.
For Arlington, yep.
We are talking tonight about buying a diesel bus. Should we go forward with 3 electric buses, we will have 2 diesel buses then in our fleet. Dan's question is, do we need 3 electric buses? We don't know the answer to that question. I guess maybe the question is, do we need 5 buses?
I don't know if you have that. I don't know if you have the answer to that question yet. You may not need 5 buses, but you don't know if you need 2 diesels, 2 electric, or 3 electric and 1 diesel yet, until we know exactly what these electric buses can do. And again, just my opinion, you need to vet that through a winter. So next spring, you can reevaluate your fleet and determine if you can get rid of a diesel bus.
Can you get rid of an electric bus?
I don't know what the restrictions of the grant would be on that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
So
still,
Mike, 4 buses is plenty to do everything?
no, he's saying 5 now.
If one breaks down, then we're back to where we started.
And they're always breaking down.
Yes, Rick?
Well, right now, Arlington School District is supplying transportation for Sandgate.
Yeah.
Sandgate bus is non-existent right now. And if you're waiting for a new bus that's only electric, that's gonna be ways off. Right now, Mike is providing 4 runs, one being Sandgate, with 4 buses. And one of them has been down quite a bit, and probably will be down quite a bit. So there is no backup bus right now. And if Sandgate's not getting a bus.
Until the electric one comes.
It might be a year from now. So Arlington is still providing.
We can sell our used bus to Sandgate.
And no backup bus.
When's the electric buses gonna be here?
So we have to put the purchase order in, the following on the actual dates, but I don't.
They haven't voted to accept.
Yeah, I thought we were talking about it would be 2020, next school year. Because it takes putting in the infrastructure, and so I think that would be adding those into our consideration for next year.
Refresh my memory, so that, is everything paid to, like, the charging station and all that? There's
Yeah.
nothing that we have to do.
It is 0% of.
One other question to the group, just to, I guess, say it out loud. Right now, are we being pushed in to make a decision about buying a bus because Sandgate doesn't have one and they are making use of one of ours?
We don't have a backup bus right now.
We don't have,
So the fact that Sandgate doesn't have an operating bus is impacting us in how we're able to manage our Arlington-owned buses. Okay,
Although I will say this, that the kids we're transporting.
coming
are-
here.
Are Sandgate residents, but they're
Absolutely.
Arlington students.
Yep, get it. But individual boards bear the financial responsibility for providing the transportation and, okay, we have a motion and we have a second to move forward with purchasing the bus based on the bid that was presented. I'm gonna call the vote. Is there any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. You good, Kendall? Okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry, now that you.
Yes, so-
Do you want us to continue with the restructuring of the runs to look at efficiencies?
It sounds like there is an opportunity to have that conversation. Absolutely. I don't know if you need that in some, I would say if you guys looked at that and came back to the board and said, we want to restructure our walk policy, our walk range based on what we've learned about usage, that would be great.
We'll talk a little more data about the number of students.
Okay.
Be in that walking range and the number of students on the bus.
Okay. Okay.
Could we, as a part of that, could you also look at number of sports trips in a year? That's not too hard, and maybe an average distance. I think Kathy or someone could throw it together pretty quickly. Or Mike. Mike may have all that information as well.
Yeah, something back on our overall bus usage and,
Do you want to talk about season or just by year?
I'd say by
year. Do you need it more granular than that? We just need to know
Right.
to know whether or not we've got the transportation to cover it. Okay. Okay. Moving on, we have buildings and grounds, and there was a document sent out to board members that was not included in the packet. I don't know if we want to make, Holly, have you seen this? Okay.
No,
But I
she
don't know
hasn't.
what this is, and I don't know that I've seen it.
No,
Okay.
We just got the quotes finished up literally yesterday at noon time, so I sent it out to everybody today.
Okay. Can you walk us through then what this is, and I'll make
Sure.
copies? Can I make copies?
By all means. So over the summer, Jamie, as we were doing work on the, well, first in the spring, there was a pretty significant leak in the roof. I don't know if you knew that. On the south end of the school, there was a pretty significant leak in the roof. It affected a couple classrooms. Jamie brought in a roofer to have the roof repaired so that it would stop leaking. The roofer made a recommendation that, as we have been over the years, is replacing that section with asphalt. It is currently slate. It has been on the roof since the building was built, so it's over 100 years old, which is about the maximum life of a slate roof. So the roofer included a quote. That quote is $23,375. And the quote I also sent. The other piece was, while we were investigating a smell in one of the offices, Jamie discovered a pretty significant leak in the basement, causing pretty significant flooding in the basement. Further investigation by Jamie, the drainage in the courtyard, which is right out here, is completely clogged to the point where it can't be jetted. It needed to be dug up, as well as a part of that, the recommendation was to improve the drainage in that entire area. It is currently 4-inch drain, which is not large enough, and also adding additional drainage along the main wing. We got 2 quotes for that. One is $20,000 for 6-inch pipe from Holly Grading. The other one is $22,800 for 8-inch pipe from Woodard Construction. And the third item is not necessarily a maintenance issue, more than a request. We had leftover fence from the pre-K playground, so Jamie got a quote to have that installed at the south end, the wooded end of the pit.
We talked about that before, didn't we?
Yep,
Yeah.
to prevent balls from going over into the woods like they have for decades. The quote for the installation of that fence is $1,462. The Arlington Soccer Club has donated the money for a net to go higher. There's already poles that have been installed and the net is being ordered.
That's where I remember this conversation is
yeah.
from that meeting.
So the
Okay.
club is donating that, but the installation of the fence would be is requested that the school pays for the installation. So those are the 3 things in that request from Jamie. In my opinion, the drainage has to be done. We don't have a choice. We have to stop the flooding from the basement. 2 excavation contractors came in and looked at it, both agree that that's the cause of it. So it has to get done. The roof could potentially wait, but we have about $84,000 in our roof fund. So there's certainly money there.
$85,528.13.
And our capital projects fund, I estimated about $69,489. You probably have a better number than I do, Jim.
For capital projects?
Yep.
$115,490.
I don't think some things have been paid out of that, because we did some summer projects. I don't think that everything's been paid yet out of that. We've done
Yeah,
some.
there still has to come out 19,000 for gym walkway, 7,100 for Fisher exterior drainage, and projects not yet completed was another 17,000 for controls at Fisher.
Yep.
So that's all the summer work.
Yeah,
Yep.
so 20, 40, another 45 that's gonna come out of that 115.
So I estimated 69,489.05 left in that.
Thank you. Did you get?
I didn't get that. I wasn't able to get on.
We
my
need
computer.
some up. Terry doesn't. Terry wasn't able to print one or to get one. Deanne, do you have one that you can, that Terry can have?
Does that include, does that include around ankle
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Does the foundation drainage include around ankle or not?
Yes, so it's 300 feet starting in that corner, going the entire length of the main wing and the entire length of the middle school wing, tying into existing drainage that is there and working properly. So,
Todd and Dan, did you guys worked with Jamie on this?
Jamie did the vast majority, kept me in the loop, and then I'd send it to Dan.
You don't know about this? We had talked at one point about having kind of a master list of all of the facilities, kind of projects and what needs to be done. That, I appreciate that you guys have the knowledge to be able to do this. It concerns me that if we're relying on the board to have the expertise to move stuff like this forward.
I don't think these were foreseen projects.
No.
These were things that, bam, all of a sudden something happened.
Yeah.
You know, we can come up with a list of foreseeable projects, like,
Yeah.
you know, road, like new pavement, and I mean, that list will be very long by the time we're done, but these were two things that just popped up due to weather and things like that, so.
Yeah, I mean, they're issues that have to be addressed. I guess my going forward, if we have a facilities transportation director, then the facility, again, I think the recommendation should be coming from the administrative team on what needs to be done and how it's being planned and how it's being scheduled, and that the board then makes a decision off of that recommendation. My concern is going forward, if we don't have Todd and Dan on the board and we have people who can't or don't have that knowledge, we're at a disadvantage.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm gonna sit here and say, basically, I don't know why Holly wasn't involved.
Yeah, that's my question.
I mean,
I'm sorry, that's a long way around it, but
It should have been.
Well, I have in collaboration with what the state provided, I have master plans for, budgeting for, all the schools, by Virginia. So I really hope.
okay. I don't know if this is a conversation to have here, but if there's a reporting relationship that's not working and that you're not being made aware of projects that are being planned, then that needs to be addressed, because this should not come as a surprise to you. Because all of this needs to fit in with what you're managing on a larger scale of the whole physical plant.
I think it's a
no-brainer. We gotta do these
Right, we
things,
have to do these
but
things.
You should know about it and you should be involved.
Yeah.
I can start asking those questions too when he calls or sends me an email with this, maybe notify Holly.
I mean, that's not the board's, right? Like, that's not the board's responsibility. We have a staff person who's involved in this discussion and making these decisions, and you don't know about it. Okay. So do we need these one by one, project by project?
it would be, I think you need them one by one, and I think you need to identify the source that's paying for them too.
Yep. So Jim, Renee you have confirmation that these are the sinking fund balances,
Yes.
that we have the funds to pay for these projects?
Way after it, you've got balances for these projects.
Okay. So the first one is the installation of the chain link fence. We have a quote from S&S Fencing for $1,462. If it's the pleasure of the board, I'd look for a motion.
I make a motion, we accept it.
Second.
You good? Okay. Any further discussion on the chain link fence? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Second, we have roofing along the south end of the high school. We have a quote from Townsend Roofing for $23,375. This would be, oh, I'm sorry. On the first motion, we didn't specify it's using capital improvement funds.
I make a motion to pay for the fence installation with capital improvement funds.
Second.
Okay. So a second one. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we have the roof. The quote is $23,375 from Townsend. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion, we accept.
Yep,
You know, when we went through the ESSER funded projects, this building is identified as a historical building, so we have to go through an extra, then I'm agreement with the state historic preservation. Changing use of materials on the outside.
We have asphalt on our roofs. We have asphalt on our roofs.
Yeah, no, my wondering is, have we contacted the state to see if that has an application, the changing materials in the application?
We'd have to ask Jamie that. I don't know
so
the
can we table?
Sure.
Does that change anything about the quote that we have? Does the timing of tabling that item affect anything in terms of the process?
I just don't want to get in trouble with.
I appreciate that. That's why it would be great if this came through you.
So Jamie's going to speak to somebody at the state level?
Holly is.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to table,
The roof is
The
currently
roof.
not leaking. That repair has been made.
okay.
But it's a repair, not a permanent remedy.
Yep. And then we have the drainage, the courtyard drainage. We have two quotes. When you go, I'm sorry, can someone clarify, when we go out and request quotes from people and we get two different bids back, like the specs are different?
Yep. The spec was requested for 8-inch. One came back with 6-inch.
Okay, so we only have one quote that met our spec.
Correct.
Okay, so there are
That's why I
two,
put in there
okay,
the difference.
okay. So while there were two quotes, only one met the requested specification. So the recommendation is to accept the quote from Woodard Construction for $22,808.
I'll make a motion to accept the quote from Woodard Construction for $22,808.
Second.
Okay. And just so that it's noted, because in the document here, Holly's quote was less, but it did not, from what I am understanding, it did not follow the spec that was given. Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then do we have a motion for this to be paid out of the capital improvement funds?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Terry, second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you both for working through that. I think we're very lucky to have some knowledge and some resources on the board, but that's not always the case.
We're still exploring the smell in the office. We think we have it nailed down to It was a leaky heater in there. That has been fixed. Some old rot has been repaired, but now we believe that there's potentially moisture got between the subfloor and the wood floor, so that is the next bit of remedy that has to be taken.
Okay.
But that's not, those are small amounts of money, not huge
Yep.
requests.
Holly, as a request from the board, then you will be involved in these follow-up conversations and make sure that any recommendations on facility improvements or maintenance that you are involved in the discussion on?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Finance, we have nothing. Report of the principal.
I will, let's do Fisher first. It's been the longest, quickest 2 weeks. So we did a meet and greet on that first day of the lunchtime meet and greet where all the pre-K through grade 5 students came, saw their classrooms, got an opportunity to meet teachers before day one. So we're happy to report that we are fully staffed at Fisher, and we have already done some professional development with our new ELA curriculum on one of our first 2 days back. And before the Saturday before, if you recall, we did a summer bash that was very well attended, and the firework display that the
That was
PTV, yeah, we had a great afternoon. We already decided, yes, we're going to do it again next year, but yes, we're going to make some tweaks to the events and the things, and whipped cream will not be in the pie, because I can speak from experience, when you get the pie in the face, you can't get rid of that smell for a couple of days. And so I've held with my first, confusing two buildings. I've held my first faculty meeting with Fisher, so Fisher's faculty meetings will be on the first Tuesday of every month, and then the high school faculty meetings will be the second Tuesday of every month. So both buildings have already had their first faculty meetings, and it's been, at Fisher, it's been a smooth transition to the start of the new year. Here at the high school, I hosted a 6th grade orientation for those students the Wednesday before school started, as well as a meet and greet for any community members who wanted to come and meet with Alex and myself. We gave tours to the 6th grade so they could be in the building, see the building before anyone else arrived. I think they came in and it was a smooth transition for them on day one. The high school is also fully staffed. We are looking at, I conducted some school-wide assemblies with all of the students. I did a middle school assembly, a high school assembly, and then I did a senior and athletes. And so all 4 of those had assemblies with myself on day one and the staff. We've been talking to seniors about community service. How many hours do you have? How many hours do you need? What's your plan? What are we doing? They're firming up their work studies. We've welcomed a few new students. 18 new students. And actually
6 through 12,
6
18?
through 12, and 2 more registered today. So there'll be updated numbers. That's in school so far.
Questions?
I would like to say that I'm very impressed. I've heard from some teachers and stuff, and the culture and the discipline is really improved, and I guess that's because of you. I know Todd talked to me a couple, 3-4 years ago about having this happen, you know, so at least wasn't it? And I think it's gone very smoothly, and I'm very impressed. And I guess what I'd like to ask you is, when we talked about this in the beginning, you told us that there was a few things that you found difficult. One was like the bullying and that, and how is that going to be handled? And the other thing was the grounds and taking care of them and that. And are we doing it right, or do we need? Are you capable
I'm
of
good
doing?
right now. Yeah, right now it's good.
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up, is to make sure that you've got the support and that there's the line of communication, so that if that ship starts to teeter in any direction, because your plate is, you're figuring it out as you go, what all is on the plate.
Yeah. And right now, I've been doing half-day schedules so that there's at least contact in each of the buildings, half-day. I've been alternating and sort of switching it up a bit so that the students here don't know exactly where I might pop around in the hallway, and which afternoons or mornings that I am present, because they will quickly be able to figure that out if there was a schedule. So I have intentionally sort of switched it up a bit and run my schedule by there. But it's Ben has been super helpful in that my extension rings in both locations wherever I am. So even if Mr. Howe tries to call me at 2:04 and he thinks I'm here, I can actually get his call right at Fisher. And there hasn't been too many back and forths. So I feel like it's been a good start. So far, so good. But yes, no, the lines of communication are open.
Okay. So in the way that you're having monthly faculty meetings, Jim and Deanne, I would just ask sort of feedback on conversations that you guys are having about, is this the right structure? Does she have the right support resources? Because we don't really know until we come across some of the issues that we haven't considered. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Deanne would probably be happy to have you come and meet here once a month.
How many steps in a day have you got?
I don't sit down when I'm here. The link is pretty, but yeah, more than 15,000.
That made me think of something. We had at one point talked about, as we were going through the into the SU transition, that there were going to be different members of the SU staff that would kind of schedule a day to be here in Arlington, and that it would rotate. As you talk to Deanne, I don't know if something like that, kind of a rotating presence, would provide assistance as she's figuring out how to cover with a different model. Not something I'd thought about, but it just prompted a...
They have all been available. Nick has been available, Melissa and Laura.
Okay.
I've talked to Amy Goslin to get all the information. It was initially, I would say in the beginning, it was just getting all the information that I needed for here, but they have all been very helpful in getting me that access very quickly, and
Okay.
I feel like we're on good. And whenever I reach out and say, I just have this question, I'm not quite sure, I get an immediate response.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. The next item is our consent agenda, which had the initial change of adding an additional nomination. And I had one revision to the minutes that I had talked to Kendall about. So we'd be looking for an approval of the consent agenda with those revisions noted.
So moved.
Dan will second. Any discussion, question? The nominations on here then fill all of our open positions?
Correct.
Okay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Superintendent's report.
First thing I want to talk about, the request from you to talk about staffing, budgets, what's balances we are seeing on our side. The principal did have a request for lack of a better term, a duty aid for coverage. Our determination, you have an adjusted available balance of $42,000 for the school year. The new custodian salary was not factored into the amount, so once that is estimated to be $40,000, that would be about the $42,000. The stipends processed for the class coverage of the math teacher equals over $60,000 when we do it according to the CDA. So there isn't much breakage in what the math is going to be for covering that. There are some benefit lines that could impact the budget as well with adding positions. Overall, the budget showing the biggest amounts of balances. You have $25,000 left in health insurance, $3,900 left in dental insurance, and the Vermont Municipal Retirement Fund, which is 7% of wages, a balance of $14,000. So I think it's difficult to determine if there's sufficient funding. It's all going to depend on who you hire and what they select for benefits. Balance, do it at your peril, I guess. $40,000 budget balance for salaries. When you look at your budget balances, it'll look like more, but there are certain things that have not been. The figure is based on budgeted positions only and does not include things such as budgets for substitutes, coaches, advisors, leadership teams. So that's why those don't get paid out yet. So that's why the balance will look bigger than what it may appear.
Okay.
So,
I mean, I think the
my
question
caution
really
to the
was,
principal is, yeah, it's still early in the year
It's
to
still early.
bring
I
that.
think I'm starting to figure out, okay, the schedule might have been the most difficult thing for me to figure out. I still don't know what day it is. 'Cause anyway, we're working on it. And initially I was
didn't
like,
understand,
whoa, we
without-
call this, yeah, sorry.
Without a physical person doing that position, who then would have been assigned duties, even though we're paying stipends to the people who cover the math, there was nobody to do the duties. So that's where that request came from. But as we look at the numbers, and I know Renee's been in communication on that too, so I would think we should hold. If you
Yeah,
can buy,
I agree.
buy some time, because then the longer you hold,
Right,
The
the
less
less,
money
if
you
I
need.
end up being, yes, and we are still looking at some schedule changes and some potential people, and since I have the ability to look at both buildings, there may be the opportunity for someone from there to come and help here for a period of time, so I'm still trying to work those things out. So I would definitely say it's a hold off, but we definitely, yeah, we're definitely missing something, but I think I can fill it.
okay.
the other thing, last month we talked about tuition for students other than high school choice, so I did get additional information so it would be clearer in the discussion than we had last time. It would be different than what high school choice. So high school choice, no money changes hands from a student from MAU came here under that, right? You just get the student in your account. The sending district would be responsible for any additional, if a student was on an IEP and there was additional costs over and above the tuition cost, that gets billed back to the sending district. So I'm told from Renee and Baldina that has happened on several occasions. So that would be different than if you took a tuition-based student, a parent-placed student from an operating school district. This school district would be responsible for all costs.
Above tuition.
Above tuition. So again, that's caution from Dina, and I've clarified that multiple times so that I can be sure of what I'm telling you. So if you decide to accept it, the District of Arlington will be responsible for all the costs for anybody who wasn't part of high school choice. So high school choice is very much like what happens from a non-operating school district, Sandgate and North Bennington, they would be responsible for choice. So just want the board to understand that if you do decide you want to move forward with accepting tuition students for grades other than high school.
Well, and we talked about it would need to be a pretty comprehensive program. It can't just be a responding to, there needs to be a process in place
Right. For
and
advertising,
open
so
opportunity for anybody to take
determine whether you have
advantage of it.
openings At certain grade levels, right? So knowing that, I guess my question to the board is, do you want to still proceed and develop a process for accepting tuition students from operating school districts?
I think if there's a process in place and it is the parents' decision and the full understanding that they, I mean,
Well,
no one's going to
just
do it.
Well, please correct me if I'm wrong. The way I understand this, and I'm going to just use an example, if parent A decides to send their kid to Arlington and is willing to spend our tuition rate of, I'm not saying this is our tuition rate, but let's say it's $17,000. That parent pays $17,000, but if it cost Arlington $90,000 to educate that kid, which is realistic if the kid has high needs, we're on the hook for the $73,000 difference. That's where I get extremely nervous.
Yep.
I would too.
As
And if you do a fair and equitable process, you have to create a process that allows
Correct.
any parent to come in
Yep.
and,
you would not be able to ask for the student to apply in zone and I.
right.
Once they're accepted, then you would ask so that you could make sure you have services provided. Because just because a student's on an IEP doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be extraordinary costs.
Right.
But you need to know so you can develop a service plan, but you can only ask that after you've accepted.
I think that given that there is no reimbursement model for expenses beyond, above tuition, our district is not in a position to take that risk.
I mean, I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Thank you for talking to her and looking into it.
Okay. The Secretary of Education is coming on a listening tour September 24th. They're coming down to the SU central office. I've invited a representative from Harvard. We're allowed 6 seats there. So I believe they're inviting school board members at a separate event. I haven't heard how that's going to work, but I was asked to invite administrators to that event. So I reached out to your principal herself or someone else from Arlington who might be available. That's the morning of September 24th from 9 to 12. I'm told there are 10 staff members from AOE who are coming, including the secretary herself. It's been framed as a listening tour. Don't know much more than that, but I want you aware that that is going to happen. I believe all board members did receive a letter from Governor Scott cautioning us about, as we enter budget season, which we are entering rather soon, about I'm sure we'll get, opposing views from our organizations and from the legislature, but cautions, as you wrote, about the amount of money that is involved. The other thing you asked me to check on is Zoom capabilities for here. I checked with technology that it's possible to move the setup that you have into this room, but we've purchased over 100 new, what are the new boards called? Thank you. There will be one in this building that will be on a cart, and it will have a sound bar and a camera attached to it that will give us, Adam Souza was assured we could be used to do a Zoom capability in this. But you also have the option to move the system that you have into here. Because, as I said, when we purchased that system for Arlington, I don't know where the decision was made to place it in the library rather than here. Maybe it's sound quality, but so I asked when that would happen, and I'm told it should be operational by your November meeting, that you would have the ability to Zoom on the board on the card. So I'm going to cover other things, but I'm going to pause and shifters. You have your principal, and you also have the SBSU Director of Curriculum,
Curriculum assessment and
and
instruction.
instruction, right, because I don't think the first in order the list is started. And what they're going to talk to you about this evening is they're going to give a presentation and share updated academic student data linked to the district's new continuous improvement plan goals that will be in effect from 2024 to 2027. And they're in alignment with the SVSU Policy 6000 curriculum. The minutes from this presentation will be shared publicly on our website after this meeting to ensure that the board and the public have the opportunity to together learn about the process, the tools, the student result format, and to avoid any misconceptions as to common understanding as we create this common understanding. At the conclusion of the presentation, questions can be directed to either me or the board chair. That's the process I'm asking you, so let them complete the presentation before we do questions. And if there's any further questions after the meeting, I'll give you something after, by all means, reach out to me or the board chair asking for clarification, and be happy to get that answer for you. So this time, Melissa, Dan, I don't know who's going first here.
I'll turn it over to the principal in just a moment. Page number 1 that you see in front of you, I do want to say where this is going to be found for anybody who is either listening or here that wants to see this later is going to be on sbsu.org and About Us and Reports. And it will be there by tomorrow or the next day, so that you can refer back to it. So the first page is all the definitions that we have of the fact that we're using national norm tests, so we're comparing our Arlington students with students across the United States. And it's over 100,000 students that take these, that calibrate these annually for both where they should be on grade level and how much should they grow for that grade level. So we're comparing ourselves and making sure that we grow. The tools that we're using, just some examples of, we use FastBridge, a particular tool that's national norm for grades K through 2 for math and grades K through K1 for reading. Grades 3 through 10 use NWA or measures of academic progress for the subject of reading, and then we use grades 2 through 10 for math. We have a national norm percentile cut score for achievement and growth, so it's both probably a grade level and are they growing the way they need to grow, whether it's a kid who's doing well, a kid who's right in the middle, or a kid who needs to grow a bit more. Percentile is just more basic information, what they call, and then you might see something called the RIT score. It's just the Roush score, which it just shows that score, sort of like an SAT score. You could have a raw score, and then that's a certain percentile. Then if you look at page 2, it's all about Fisher. Page 3 is all about Arlington, and Nicole knows the makeup of this because we saw this at the SU level. What we've done is we've given the schools each developed their 3-year plan. It starts this year and for the next 3 years. And so they developed that 3-year plan, starting this year, going to, as Jim said, 2027. And there's 2 ELA goals and there's 1 math goal for Fisher. There is a 2 ELA goals for Arlington Memorial, and also 2 math goals for Arlington Memorial. But what we wanted to offer to the leadership teams and to the principal is, so from last year, how are the actual numbers, how are they doing? So that was offered, and then Deanne's going to share with you some of the things that she's doing with her team and strategies in order to achieve those math goals and the literacy goals, because some of them might involve some funding things coming up in football plus budget season that we have that's coming right now. So I turn it over now for tell us about your strategies, please.
Thank you. We at Fisher actually looked at the actuals from 23-24, and knowing that we were going to be implementing a new ELA curriculum, we had 61% of the students who were showing growth in vocabulary comprehension and consistency in So we're hopeful that within 3 years, we're able to bump that up to 70% in our faster assessment, looking at foundational skills. We, in addition to so we have the loop that's occurring in grades 1 to 2, which we've already seen some great growth in our initial screener. But we're also going to monitor the tiered system of instruction and intervention for all students. So we'll take the Track My Progress scores. We'll sort of just see where kids are and see if we can increase the number of kids getting intervention in groups, and then implement the new curriculum and use our data team meetings to always be refining based on the foundational skill, regrouping kids every 6 weeks, grade level meetings, and having all of those pieces to be able to address and meet students where they are in the curriculum. When we look at math, so we're in year 2 of our new math curriculum. So we're hoping, because 48% of our students demonstrated growth in math on the NWEA, and we really want to see an increase in that. 70 might be a little bit of a stretch, but we are hopeful with the new curriculum of Bridges, and that we'll continue to do the same thing that we're doing for ELA, using that intervention time, using those data team meetings to look at assessments and meet kids where they are moving forward. Shall we keep talking about this?
I do. I just want to give you kudos to say, maybe you might have seen Act 139, which is about early intervention for literacy that goes into effect next July. And I think that everything I would echo that you're talking about for kindergartners, first graders, and second graders with literacy, your principals just outlining that everything that they would want us to do. Thank you.
So at the high school, we're going to look at the proficiency-based graduation information. I am not as familiar with their data just yet, but we do have the goal. They have 50% of their students who are actually meeting or exceeding the Vermont ELA proficiency-based graduation. We have, though, added some things. So we do have a reading interventionist, one of the things that we decided at the end of last year. We have a full-time for the district ELA interventionist. We added the reading teacher. So we've added a .2, which is basically afternoons, Monday through Friday, of the interventionist to come here to work with the middle level students. We're hoping that will provide them with some intervention. And we've also, based on the schedules, they've created, and this is year 2, I believe, of the waterfall schedule, so that kids are getting, there's a structured, consistent schedule, and that if kids are having to leave for whether it's sports activities or end of the day, that they're not missing that single block. So they find that to be super helpful, so we kept those schedule structures into place. And the same with math. There's not an intervention block, but the middle school has some flex blocks, and there are some additional staff to help the kids who are in need of some support. Any questions?
Yeah, I guess I'll ask a question. Just because I was talking to somebody of education up north, you probably can't say at the high school, at the elementary school. I was talking to him, and he says, so what are the kids' education now compared to like 10 years ago? And he said, oh, it was much better 10 years ago. It shocked me. I said, why is that? He said, well, it's a lot to do with the state getting involved and screwing everything up. But I just wondered, do you see kids when we're talking like this? Like the third graders, are they where they were? I mean, we all know, we've read about some of these test education and they lowered all the standards. And then they said, oh yeah, we're the same. Well, we weren't, because they lowered all the standards. What do you really, at the elementary, because you're there, I guess?
Well, one of the things that I believe is we set these lofty goals and percentages,
Yeah.
and then after 3 years, they change the assessment we give. So we can't ever take an assessment like the SBAC and compare it to NWEA. We can't compare. But
we're not comparing apples to apples.
Yeah, okay.
Because they changed the assessment. And they changed the assessment because it's not giving them the information they want, so they decide to choose a different one. And then we're having to play that sort of assessment. Now what? How do we compare this result with the last result? And I feel like, it wasn't right if I'm wrong, it's every 3 to 5 years.
I would say the only thing that, I think we have to look at the sheer numbers is consistent, is for math and reading. Those standards have been set since 2010. So those have been some consistency that I know that professionals in both buildings have been working really hard, and those have been the same. I am hopeful that those don't change in some way, because that would be a lot of work as we do this cycle, unless there's a real reason for it. But I would concur, it would be, we're always looking to find something longitudinal, and from the state level, it is a challenge because of the choices they make with changing the assessments. You're correct, absolutely. It's hard. And then I can't bring you the results from last spring right now for how your two schools did on the Vermont 6 test, because as of driving up here an hour and a half ago, they still were not posted. So as soon as those are done, we will of course, share those to say how our kids doing. And then I believe Jen and Laura will be coming up with the other side of this, is how are our kids doing social emotionally.
Okay, I was gonna say, because there's safe and healthy and personalization, right, still to come?
That's the part 2 of this.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions for the principal? I had a couple other items on the report. Thank you again. One dozen officers on one board to take action of a request because of the time that she's worked this summer. She has not been able to use all her vacation time, so asking the board to vote. It's not in her contract. I recommend that at some point we should look at the principal contracts and whether this should be here, but to roll over her unused vacation time. So with the board, so that HR can do that and need board action on that. So a motion to allow the principal and the cost to roll over any of her requested unused vacation time.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we allow Leanne to roll over her unused vacation time. Has the number of days changed?
No, that's not.
Okay.
And we believe we received it and requested an email.
Yep. And is there a time frame, or is this just they roll over for the year?
Yeah, they will, again, the contract is silent on that.
Yeah.
About whether there is a time that they have to be used in. There's no sellback provision or anything like, there's nothing like that in the contract. So,
Okay.
so it's something that the board may want to consider going forward.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. If there's any further discussion. Otherwise, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Take some time off.
Yep. Not healthy, but all the time.
Oh, but by the way, you're running 2 schools.
The last thing that I want to inform the board, it's been brought to our attention, so now it's brought to our attention, I can't ignore it, that we may not have done everything correctly during the merger. One of the things that was brought to our attention that there should have been a transitional committee formed to look at all employee contracts for the merging of those contracts. The law, if you want to read it, it's 1802, section 16, 1802, the transition of employees to newly created employer. It goes on to say that any new employee beginning employment after the first day of the new district or the new SU, that they transition to the contract of the largest bargaining unit for employees of realigning districts. So we have referred this to our attorney. She's reviewing it. But one of the recommendations is that we reach out to, and I'm looking at the union president, that they would need to be involved in this discussion, this board, members of the other boards, for how this transitional contract, where I say I think we erred is, and we weren't aware, and as my discussions with HR Director Nick Galt, why didn't the state make us aware of this? As they forced this merger on us, that we should have this transitional committee looking to create one unified contract, and failing that, then that provision kicks in about what happens to the employees going forward. I don't want anybody to panic at this time, but I feel I have to do my due diligence and let you all be aware of it as we have become aware of it. I would suggest you reach out to the Vermont NEA, make them aware of it, and we should then get everybody particular. A little time, because you're not bargaining at this time, but you will start soon, and the rest of the SU has signed a 2-year contract, so they won't start negotiating until next fall. But I know that's like a mic drop at my last part of my report, right, as I'm bringing that information to you. But
So what would be our next steps on that? What actions does the board need to take?
I'm going to ask Dana to give me a rule. I'm thinking we need to form a transitional committee to look at how these documents can be merged. I'm sure I will be informing the other union involved, the other unions involved, that we're aware of this. I'm sure the Vermont NEA will want to weigh in with this. Our attorney will want to weigh in with this. And so I don't think there's anything to do right now, but I will keep you informed. As once you know that we're looking at this, I don't want you to be blindsided by all of a sudden I get a ruling from Dina Atwood that you're going to start issuing contracts to new employees in Arlington that are the other issue.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't want to do that without I have
Everything clearly in, all the ducks.
And that concludes my report this evening.
Okay. We kind of covered committee reports under buildings and grounds. Chair's report. I did attend the regional meeting this week. It was myself from Arlington, and then Leon Johnson from Bennington, and then there were 3 or 4 members from the BRSU who participated. The meeting was statewide. Usually they're held regionally. So there's a group that gets together in Bennington and all the regional boards participate. This was all in one and then kind of a round robin. So there were breakout sessions for the regional. We elected our VSBA representative, which is Jim Salzgiver. He's been in this role. He's been doing this work. He's very involved in the Taconic and Green Board as well as the VSBA. So that is Jim. They talked about a couple of things that are coming up. Well, the other thing in the regional meeting, we talked about how can we do more across our region. So the Taconic and Green and the BRSU, they have considerable representation at the VSBA level as well as the state level. They have quite a few people from the BRSU who are on the State Board of Education. They have 2 people who were either previously or formerly on the State Board of Education that are on the commission that the governor has put in place for the future of public education. They're very, as they say, they're very dialed in. They're very represented. So their needs are often also very well attended to because they have some good visibility. I appreciate Kathleen and Rob coming to talk to us at our meeting. I'm hopeful. I mean, we're kind of in a unique situation because Kathleen and Rob will be our state representatives, but they also, the majority of what they represent is the BRSU districts. Then there are representatives for Bennington who oversee the majority of the the SVSU. So we're kind of in a weird, the Venn diagram, and we're sort of in our own little, I don't know if it's possible to start having monthly or quarterly with representatives from each of the boards and state representation. I think the Commission on Public Education is going to have some really wide-reaching implications, that the more we can stay up on that and know what's being discussed at that level. Kathleen would be very happy to and willing to initiate setting up some sort of forum if it's a quarterly discussion. BRSU, Taconic and Green, Arlington, Bennington, SVSU, something that starts to get us to talk more regionally about what's going on within our neck of the woods. So there's no action here. I just want to bring up that that was discussed at the regional meeting, if there's some way that we can start to work more together. Yeah, and the other thing is, in addition to the Commission on Public Education, there are new ed quality standards that are coming out that are to be in effect 2025, and there are new governance standards, district quality standards that take effect in 2025. They did a presentation on the district quality standards. This is really something that we are going to have to pay a lot of attention to. These are how districts and boards will operate. There are specific standards that have been set on budgeting and accounting, risk management and internal controls, personnel management, data management, facilities safety, and there's an annual self-evaluation that we have to do, and then there's statewide data collection. So we are going to have to make sure that our practices meet these standards. Any district that over time is identified as not meeting those standards, then there is a statewide review that basically comes in and evaluates how your board is functioning, how you're working. The goal really is to try to get boards all up to kind of a common, I don't want to say level of effectiveness, but Scott McEnany for the SVSU is starting this conversation, and so we will have to kind of figure out, how does this impact our operations? Where do we have gaps? Where are we not meeting expectations? So that is to come, and I think there will be more that kind of comes from the SVSU that helps drive what we do here. The annual conference, the VSBA conference, if anybody is interested in attending, is October 24th and 25th. I'm looking through my notes. I think that was it. If there is any other business from the board? If there's no other business, then I would take a motion to adjourn at 6:59.
So moved.
Okay.